Hey everybody, welcome to Grimsforge Gaming. Today we're going to cover my Stamina Nightblade Ronin, and this is a no cloak, or we're using dark cloak I should say, and it's a two-hand brawler. And let's jump right into the build. So the first thing is, this is kind of a reoccurring theme for me with builds that require a lot of stamina and a lot of magicka, and this build does require a lot of both. And the first setup that we're going to run is Shackle Breaker, and you can see that we get some weapon damage, we get some recoveries on both stamina and magicka. We get 2000 max stam and 2000 max magicka, and that's pretty nice. We are a 7 heavy on this as well. This build, the way I'm playing it, is basically a tank. We have near cap resistances on it, and we will push over 3600 weapon damage. Now in a group with some other buffs and things like that, we will be at 3800 4k. So if I were not running these poisons on the back bar, you could put a weapon damage glyph on the back bar as well, your buff bar, and that would work just fine. The only reason we're running two-hand is more from a theme or thematic standpoint. We're a samurai, and he's got just a katana or a sword on both bars. So if you want to run sword and board on the back, you don't want to try and do this hard mode, feel free to do that. You could also run, I've got Nernhoned on this back bar, you can run defending, and that'll make you even beefier. So Shackle Breaker's our first piece, and then we've got the Ring of the Wild Hunt, and this gives us our mobility. I think this is very important right now. Speed is king in PvP, and I did not infuse this. I actually want to keep the swift trait on it, so that way I get the extra 6% movement speed. I think that's going up to 7% here real soon, but you can see down at the bottom it says increase your movement speed by 15% while in combat. And when you add the 6% for the swift trait, we're moving at 21% additional movement speed while in combat, and that's needed for sure. Increase your movement speed by 45% while out of combat, and so when you add the 6% on top of that, we're moving at 51% movement speed out of combat. Good stuff. The next set that we are running is Ancient Dragon Guard. And I want you guys, I'm going to link a BG. It was actually my first CP BG, and I did not even have Vigor yet for this, and I don't think we had any deaths for that BG even without Vigor. And of course the MMR on that BG will be very low. It was my first CP BG, but if you want to see how to play this build and how it is tanky and how we line up our damage, stick around after this. Anyways, Ancient Dragon Guard, that's the second set we're running. Shackle Breaker with Ancient Dragon Guard. You can see we get, on the 2-piece we get max health, and then on the 3-piece we get some weapon damage, 4-piece we get some crit, and then on the 5-piece we get about 300 additional weapon damage. And then if we fall under 50% health, we're going to gain more resistances, so it's going to make us that much more tanky. Like I said, I would basically consider this build a tank with teeth. We are able to line up our damage and put damage into people, and we've got a lot of healing coming in from it. Now that said, our individual Vigor, like I said, I just unlocked Vigor, but our Vigor tooltip is not going to be as high as it can be, or as high as people that are running 6k weapon damage and things like that. But the combination of Dark Cloak and Vigor right now, and then some other things that we're doing, we just got a lot of healing coming in, so it's been working out really well. Whenever you run a Mythic item, you see how this kind of broke up our 5-piece here. We're running infused weapon damage on both our Ancient Dragon Guard rings here, and you add a Mythic item, it's going to break up a monster set. And so what we had to do was, we're going to be short one Ancient Dragon Guard piece, so we just crafted a heavy Ancient Dragon Guard shoulders, put that up there, and then that only gives us one monster piece set. And because we are in all heavy, where we were going to be lacking was going to be in penetration. And I think we get almost 12k penetration on this build, so we're near cap resistances. Have a lot of self-healing capabilities, and our burst lines up very well on this. And I did change some things. If you watch the BG footage as I was leveling this guy, I found a lot of things out along the way. And by the time we hit CP, some things had changed as far as the functionality of the build and how it felt. And so I like where it's at right now, and I think this is actually where we're going to keep it. Anyways, it needs additional pen when you're in all heavy armor, and that's how we got that. Another thing of note too, before I put the Ring of the Wild Hunt on here, I actually tried Malakath's Band, and it was a failed attempt, mostly because because this particular build, we don't have a lot of dot damage, and we're not a proc build, right? Um, and we weren't getting enough out of Malakath's Band. And even though our crit's fairly on the low, I think when we use an ability, we'll get over 30% crit chance. Those times we did crit, we crit and hit really hard. And Malakath's Band allowed us to hit hard, but we feel a little bit more dangerous without it on this build. Now, I would say use Malakath's Band on a Stam DK for sure. Buff all your dot damage and things like that. Werewolves, that would be fine. But for this particular build, Ring of the Wild Hunt was the way to go. On my back bar, I am running this poison. It's Drain Health Poison. In the BG footage after all of this, you'll see that I didn't have that equipped. I just put that on there. I was like, when we're buffing up on our back bar, there's no reason I can't slide in a light attack there just to get this going and for that extra healing, right? But this is very nice poison. If you guys haven't tried that, another poison that you could run on this back bar is the Hindrance poison that will immobilize your target. And unless you're dueling, if you're looking at this build for dueling purposes, you wouldn't want to run any poisons. But if you're going to Open World Cyrodiil or Imperial City, I'd run this, or I'd run Hindrance poisons that do the immobilization, or I'd run the double resource poisons that's going to increase their stamina and magicka for a really dirty poison. But anyways, just kind of looking at it again, Kraz for additional penetration, heavy. We had to make Ancient Dragon Guards, and you can see we got the prismatic enchants on everything as well. We're trying to bump those stats. And when we look at the stats here, see our resistance is 32,000, both physical and spell. Crit resistance 3,500. Our weapon damage is a little over 36, and then our weapon critical goes up to 34%. That's not too bad. Our stamina recovery goes up as well to about 1,500. And if I were to change my food right now, I'm doing Dubious Cameron Throne, but if I went with Artaeum Takeaway Broth, I could get a little bit more stamina recovery. We are a fairly heavy tack, a centric type build, and so while we do have great burst and things like that, there are times where we'll need to line up some heavy attacks, and it's not really that big of a deal because even when we heavy attack people, we still thump them pretty hard, so don't worry about that. You can see our physical penetration. This will get up to just under 12k. Let's double check for you here. Yeah, 11,984. Here's our our recovery, stamina at 1,500, health recovery 500, magicka recovery is just under 1,000, and I think that's a good place for magicka to be as well. We're at 14,000 max magicka, 29,000 max health, almost 30, and that's because we are a tank, I would say. We're a brawler, and we're going to be in the mix, and so this is a nice spot to be at. And then 28,000 is pretty nice on our max stamina as long as we're channeling some heavy attacks. And so anyways, we've looked at the gear, we've looked at the stats, buffed up. Let's look at the abilities here real quick, and then we'll look at the abilities. Let's see. So we are running ambush, and a lot of people say, "Oh, Stamblades don't run gap closers," and I have a lot of people that run from me on a lot of my different builds, and so I need a way to close distance to them. And not only that, but ambush applies minor vulnerability, so the target's taking 8% more damage. By using ambush, that allows me actually on my two-hand bar to actually run frost damage, so that way I can apply minor maim. I'll do frost damage and it'll apply the chilled status effect, which in turn will do minor maim. So they're doing less damage to me in that moment, so that's pretty nice. Um, Anyways, I'll run ambush as a gap closer. It applies minor vulnerability and it gives me a power for 5 seconds, so my light attacks do additional 40% damage. This is a new addition to the build. Normally for a Stamblade you don't need to run D-swing, right? You're just going to do a surprise attack, but the tooltip on the D-swing as opposed to the surprise attack was significantly higher. Unbuffed it says 9700, and unbuffed on this is 8200, so it's almost 1000 to 2000 damage different, which the difference between these two is this has a 0.8 second cast time and this one is instant. But the way I was playing this build, it was getting kind of hard to channel a heavy attack and then go right into a surprise attack, heavy attack, surprise attack, and I wanted to start getting people out of there quicker. And so what I did was I dropped Relentless Focus off my bar, because Relentless Focus, while it's nice, very bursty, and reduces your damage taken while you have it, that's great, but we're almost near resistance capped anyways. And you can see unbuffed, the tooltip on it would be 15,000. So I was hitting people for 6, 7K with this, but it's after 5 light attacks. And the way the rotation was working, like, what it come down to is this: the amount of time I took to gap close to someone, light attack, surprise attack, light attack, surprise attack, light attack, surprise attack, light attack, surprise attack, to get to 5 light attacks to where I could actually finally use this was nowhere near the damage output when I don't even worry about that, waiting for this proc, and just gap close to the target, apply minor vulnerability, and dizzy swing them, and you can animation cancel basically the D swing right into a surprise attack, and then go right back into another D swing surprise attack. And the damage output between these, and you can mix in a light attack after you hit this too, so it's D swing, surprise attack, light attack, D swing, surprise attack, light attack, and you apply off balance to this. And if they're immune to off balance means if I were to channel a medium or a heavy attack, it would knock them down. It would stun them. So that's one form of a stun that I had in my kit, was just applying off balance. The other form of a stun is basically just getting to their flank, attacking with surprise attack from the flank, stuns the enemy for 3 seconds. And with the additional movement speed that we have on the build, that's an option too. So we have 2 potential ways that we can apply a stun in our rotation. But if you haven't tried this on a Brawler Nightblade before using Dark Cloak, it's going to be just D-swing into surprise attack and animation cancel the D-swing with the surprise attack into a medium attack or light attack, and then go right back into it. And it's just pretty bursty. I like that combination. And then we've got Reverse Slice here for the splash damage, because both of these are single target, but if we can get somebody low and then there's like 3 or 4 people clumped up in a group, this Reverse Slice is going to put pressure or damage into the group. Right now I've got Dark Cloak on my front bar, and you can see that the heal on this, it's actually a pretty good heal. I would say between Dark Cloak, if you've never used this before, it gives you minor protection as well. So you're taking less damage, and you have healing coming in. So I like having this on my front bar. This allows me to actually stay on my front bar more. I only have to go on my back bar to apply my buffs. The ultimate that we are using is Berserker's Rage. If you haven't used this, you should check it out. It's a pretty fun build, and pretty fun ability, and it really allows you to tank down. It adds to our tankiness for sure, but striking an enemy with a vicious blow dealing 12,000, this is unbuffed, physical damage to them and all nearby enemies. So I call this my bonk. And if there's somebody in a group of people and I'm getting them low with my regular rotation, and I'll hit him with a bonk. And I can tell you that this attack ignores the target's resistances and grants physical and spell resistance equal to the amount ignored. And if you watched my Spartan Unleashed 2.0, I'm using this ability on him as well. He's a Stamplar, and I have a screenshot on him. If you hit this on a tank, you get their resistances, and I have a screenshot of almost 60k resistances. Okay, and so when I use this on people, my resistances just go absolutely off the charts, which allows my heals to help me get get back in the fight, right? And it does damage to everybody, and you are immune to all disabling, snare, and immobilization effects for the duration. So hitting this in a fight early in outnumbered situations gives you just immense resistances and allows you to get off your rotations on somebody and start getting people out of there. This felt really good. This setup right here, I've never run a brawler no cloak, because I always came to this part where I was like, why even take the damage at all? Why not just cloak, and just reset the fight, or pick and choose my fights and burst people down and then just disappear. And so that's why I never could see this type of build through. And anyways, with all the different builds that I've been trying and playing around with, I thought, you know what, maybe it's time. It's time to visit this brawler build and see what I can do and make him a tank that has teeth. And so that's what we did. The back bar. Right now we've got leeching strikes. This is another form of sustain, and we have healing coming in from this. And I wouldn't want to run this build without leeching strikes, so here it is. Another option, another ability is Mirage. It's going to give me minor resolve and major evasion. So minor resolve is increasing my physical and spell resistances by 1320 for 26 seconds, so making us more tanky. And we're reducing damage from area attacks by 25%. Making us more tanky, and so that's pretty nice. If you decide that you don't want this ability on there, this is a Magicka expense and you don't want that on there, another way to go would be Reaper's Mark. I like Reaper's Mark for a couple reasons. Number one, it applies major fracture and minor fracture to targets, so if you need to get somebody out of there, you can. But the way I've been playing this build, I don't really mind chopping on a tanky person, because once I get my ultimate, I'm just going to use my bonk on them, right? And strip their resistances, and I'll become even more tanky. And I like where the healing on this build is at, so I feel like I'm going to be fine against the tanky guy, like as far as self heals come in. So but if you wanted to add a way to strip people's resistances, I would put this, that's your flex spot, and drop that in there. Another nice thing about this is when the marked enemy dies, you heal for 20,000. That's unbuffed, and you gain Major Berserk for 5 seconds. So your damage output is increased by 25% for 5 seconds. Now the thing about that is this ability will directly allow you to chain kills together quicker for sure, and you've got a lot of healing coming in when you're doing that. So that's the trade-off. Do you want to be more tanky and have minor resolve and major evasion, or do you feel like the build is feeling tanky enough? Let's get Reaper's Mark and let's start chaining a bunch of kills together. Shadow Image is definitely the play, because we do have the Ring of the Wild Hunt, which is a mobility plus for us for sure, but we still need a way to shake people. to juke them, to juke outnumbered situations where our heals aren't where we're at, or because you saw where our recoveries were at, some of the fights become a recovery issue, right? Like not being able to channel enough heavy attacks, or I'm just being too active. And so this is definitely the way. If you stick and watch the BG afterwards, you'll see I juke. I use this a couple times to actually get out of some really tough situations. And so for that reason, this has earned a spot on my bar permanently. I use this on the Mandalorian build as well, which is Stamblade, 6k weapon damage, Cloak as well. So if you're looking for a build that is your more typical Nightblade, my Mandalorian would be the way to go. You can see I just unlocked Vigor and turned in my quest for Battlegrounds and got to more Vigor, to resolving Vigor. Super low tooltip on it. Even when I buff up, it's only like a 15k tooltip. But between this and Dark Cloak, we've got plenty of heals coming in, and our resistances and everything else, we feel very tanky for sure. And then we're running Rally on our back bar. That is another plus to the build, running two-hand. It allowed us to, if we only ran two-hand and do sword and board on our back bar, we'd have to put Rally on this front bar and move this to our back bar, which would mean, like I said earlier, by having this on my front bar, it allows me to actually just stay on my front bar, and whenever I need some passive heals and damage mitigation, I hit this. So that's pretty nice. And then on the back bar for extreme outnumbered situations, we have Soul Tether, which we're going to do magic damage to everyone around us, healing for half the damage and stunning them for 4 seconds. Ravaged enemies are tethered to you for 8 seconds, and while they remain within 10 meters, you siphon 1700 health every second. And so in extreme outnumbered situations where everybody's banging on me, if I have this available, you can see both my ultimates have the exact same cost. I'll hit this and stun some people and try and reapply my buffs, and then we're going to decide if we're going to evade or we're going to try and burn some people down. So that said, this is situational. If there's 5 people hitting on me, this is the play. The amount of heals I'm going to have coming in from this is going to help out. 5 people hitting on me, this is going to make my resistances off the charts. It's going to hit them all, bonk them all, but I still need to rely on my heals to keep me up. And so that's kind of the trade-off between the two. Be ultra tank, but still have to rely on your heals, or hit this and it's going to handle everything, and then you can just go ham or start worrying about evading. So get all your class passives for everything, and two-hand, you're going to get all the passives from that. Because I said we are 7 heavy, you'll get all the heavy armor passives. A couple nice things about the heavy armor passive is this one right here. Your healing received is increased by 8%, and that makes this feel really nice. We are a Nord. We want that rugged passives. It's almost 4,000 additional physical and spell resistance, and stalwart. We have additional stamina and ult gen as we take damage. That's nice. Frost resistance, and we're immune to the chilled status effect, which is great. So we are immune to minor maim. So, and let's see. I think that is about it. Food, let's jump into that real quick, sorry. Alright, so we were running Dubious Cameron Throne, and it looked like my Mundus had actually fallen off. That is super odd. I had the Warrior Mundus Stone, and it is gone. So I was wondering why my weapon damage was at 3,600. But anyways, yeah, Warrior Mundus Stone fell off after that last BG. How about that? And so 3,800 is where your almost 3,900 4K weapon damage is where you're going to be at on this build. Super strange. Anyways, my Mundus Stone fell off. How about that? There's something weird for you guys. So we looked at the gear, we looked at the stats, we looked at the abilities. Food, I would run our Tame Takeaway Broth. We're currently on Dubious Cameron Throne. Run the Warrior Mundus Stone. We talked about the changes we would do. Let's jump into CP and then we'll jump into that BG afterwards. I've got 51 points in Ironclad. That gives us 19% for direct damage. It reduces direct damage. All the big hitting abilities for the most part in the game are going to be direct damage, so you want to put a lot of points into Ironclad. 60 points into Spell Shield. It's going to give me a nice 4,400 additional into my spell resistances. 35 points into Resistant for extra crit resistance. Almost 954. And I have nothing here. That's where I differ than a lot of people. I'm not running a sword and board, so I'm not worried about this passive, and I'm not really worried about Unchained either. But anyways, I wanted to push my resistances as high as I could for this build, and I do this on all my builds, and it works out very well. We've got 60 points in heavy armor focus for another 4,400 in our physical resistance, 64 points into quick recovery for our healing received. 1 point in a siphoner, so our enemies have one extra thing to cleanse from themselves. 18 points into Warlord to cut the break free cost, and 64 points into Mooncalf for an extra 13% stamina recovery. 64 points into Arcanist for Magicka recovery, and 62 points into Tenacity. And there's a couple points wasted there. You can see you probably want to get this down to about the 12% mark. You know, we have 0.8 wasted there, so you'd have a couple extra points there if you needed it. But tenacity is pretty important. Like I said, we're a pretty heavy attack centric type of build. 61 points into tumbling to reduce our roll dodge cost by 21%. I wouldn't put points into Shadow Ward because while we are able to block cast on this build, it's actually more beneficial for us to be attacking because of siphoning attacks. So anyways, I'd rather not just stand around and block on this build, even though I said it was a tank, right? PvP tank. Blessed, we've got 30 points into that for an extra 7% healing received. You see we got a couple extra points free there, and I think this is a point dump for me, so that's no problem. 61 points into Mastered Arms, which almost all of our attacks are direct damage attacks, except for, well, they all are direct damage, so it increases our damage by 21%, and then our light and heavy attacks are increased by 15.9% for an extra 26 points. So I have a couple extra points over here. I should probably, to optimize these, take a couple points from Blessed, put them in here to get this to the 16% point, and we will do that. 51 points into Precise Strikes for an additional 19% crit damage. When we were running Malakath's Band, I still had these points in here. We weren't going to benefit from the critical damage, but we were going to benefit from critical healing with stamina abilities. And we just got Vigor, so that's going to be really nice. Piercing, 51 points into that for an extra 4,000 physical penetration. 51 points into Mighty for an extra 11% physical poison disease damage, which we do most of those, so that's great. That is the CP, and I am 100% on it, or serious, that my Mundus fell off after that last BG. So as you guys teleport into Imperial City, check your stats and make sure that doesn't happen to you, because I had it before the BG and here we are without it. But anyways, that will make the weapon damage look that much better. We'll end up hitting the 3800 4K weapon damage, and as you're watching the BG footage here at the end, I'll have to see if my weapon damage, see if it fell off as we went into the BG or if it fell off after. Very strange. Anyways, here it is. Ronin, Brawler, Nightblade, no Cloak. You guys be safe out there. Thanks. Hey everybody, as a quick update, I just hopped out of Imperial City where I did the build video for this, and my Mundus is back. So there's some type of bug going on with that. I'm going to report that or send in a ticket. So anyways, as you hop into Imperial City, double check that your Mundus doesn't fall off, because here I am right outside where I ported into Imperial City and my Mundus is back. So weird. I have no clue what that's all about. So, and just as a to confirm here. You can see our weapon damage. Weapon damage is just under 4K, 3,900, and we would hit over 4K if we had a weapon damage glyph on the back bar. But yeah, Warrior Mundus Stone, it's back. I don't know what's up with that. Anyways, double check that, guys. Be safe out there. Bye.
Their cries, such sweet music.